with AJ Francis. Nobody wants to.
I don't and won't believe in Joe Hendry any day. I don't believe that you believe anything you say. I can't believe that you was dumb enough to interrupt us. Best believe that shit'll get you jumped. About 10 feet in the air is where it got you dumped. And you was bouncing off the ground like double dutch. I can't believe you said the same corny lines that we've heard 100 times. Hendry, there was no surprise. Try some new shit. Homeboy, I can't believe you made me do this. Hendry, is you stupid? I'm too talented and too rich. One phone call, I'll be back on my Dr. Sushi. Your body dumped, swimming with one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. I came from where they
And now it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA Wrestling, a rare Friday edition of TNA. Man, I have the I have a rare Friday. Actually, it's not that rare, but I have Friday off, and I have the house to myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and record and do some Brace for Impact stuff today. So conspicuous by our absence was JD and myself last night. We did not get the chance to go live last night, so I'm actually going to do another live show tonight. JD is doing the state championships, and I had to work last night, so I didn't actually get a chance to record. I got home a little bit late, and by the time I got home, it was going to be too late for me to have a co-host. And honestly, if I had recorded it live, nobody would have been able to join us anyway, so that would have hurt the show. But my intention was to have a show last night and have it fresh for you guys in the morning whenever you woke up, but I just could not get it done. So we're going to go live on a rare Friday night too. So make sure you guys are stay tuned for that. But man, today's show has been a journey so far, because the original title of the show, the headline, was Tommy Dreamer taking over creative. And that's because that came from Dave Meltzer. But Mike Johnson, literally just as I was about to hit record, Dobby the Brain Heenan sent me this note that Mike Johnson just posted, and I'm going to read it. So hold on. You know what I'm going to do? I think this is breaking news worthy. So let's do the breaking news bit.
Breaking news.
All right, so this comes from Mike Johnson at pwinsider.com. Said, over the last few hours, there has been a story spreading that Tommy Dreamer has taken over head of creative for TNA. That story is coming from Dave Meltzer. Like, he legitimately posted it in the Observer that Tommy, and it was just like a one-line sentence. It was just Tommy Dreamer has taken over creative for TNA. But PW Insider can confirm with multiple sources that is 100% incorrect. Here is what they have confirmed after speaking to multiple sources. The existing TNA creative team of Dreamer, R.D. Evans, and Delirious will remain in place and continue to work as they did prior to Scott's departure. The existing team will be supported by Gail Kim, who is already one of the top officials for the company and does so many things back, so talent relations. But now Gail is going to be part of creative. Jorge Barbosa, who I happen to be a big fan of. He does all those really cool Fight Network documentaries and stuff that we have seen, like the Fight Network Diary and all those things. He's really good at that stuff. And all of your TNA documentaries that we see, that's Jorge. So Jorge, he's joined the creative process. Barbosa has been a senior producer for Anthem for a long time, and was the person behind all the Fight Network documentaries. Yeah, I just talked about that. So if it isn't Dreamer who's in charge, well, this is going to come as a surprise, because I have not heard this name in a long time. PW Insider has confirmed that Ariel Schnurder, whatever his name is, will be overseeing all TNA content going forward, and will be working in conjunction with TNA President Anthony Ciccione. It will be Schnurrer who will have the last word on any talent and creative decisions, although Ciccione will be the top of the pyramid. Schnurrer is a former general manager of the Fight Network and has been involved in TNA since Anthem acquired the company. If you guys recognize that name, Ariel Schnurrer, or however you pronounce his name, he was on TNA for years he would do cameos as Dr. Ariel. And then they pulled him from TV, and then we ended up getting oh God, what's his Dr. Ross Foreman. So we ended up getting Dr. Ross after Ariel ended up not appearing on TV anymore. So so that's your new head of creative for TNA. It's Dr. Ariel. But this it's so weird because right here there's a line in the Dreamer says Tommy Dreamer is now the head of creative, as many expected, with D'Amore gone. So I don't know. So this fallout for D'Amore, I get the feeling by the time I'm done with this episode, I might have to do another addendum because more news is going to come out. Now that D'Amore's gone, we're actually getting like a bunch of TNA leaks right now because everybody's trying to get their side of the story out. It's super crazy. So yesterday, TNA talent, and I think some of their executives, or not executives, but TNA talent and some of the staff members, they sent like a unified letter to Anthem management, and it was pretty sad, to be honest with you. And it was kind of like their last ditch effort to bring Scott back. But guys, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but he's not coming back. Like this thing is over. The only way Scott's coming back is if he finds a billionaire to back him and they buy the company. And as of right now, Anthem doesn't really want to sell, so it'll probably take a lot of money to get the company. So this just came out yesterday. It was released by Fightful, so it was one of Fightful's. They do a lot of stuff with TNA talent, and so TNA talent likes to give them all the leaks. So they wrote a letter to Len Asper, and it was first released by Fightful. I'm not going to read the entire letter because most of it is pretty boring. But it starts off with TNA Impact is not just our employer and the company for which we work. I think it's written by ChatGPT. It is a family that each of us has grown to love and cherish and trust with our bodies and our careers, a family for which we feel deeply, and that desire above all else to protect. We are deeply saddened by the decision to remove Scott D'Amore from the TNA Impact family. Scott has a brilliant wrestling mind that has guided this company and has it positioned to take the next step upward in our industry. Scott is also much more than this. He's a trusted friend, confidant, teacher, advisor, brother, mentor. So everything that we've been talking about how they feel, they're kind of expressing this in public. Scott's been the heart of the TNA Impact for over 2 decades. Len and Anthem have been instrumental in supporting and building this company back from the ground up. Contributions of Len, so now they're kissing Len's ass. Contributions of Len and Anthem have never gone unnoticed by anyone in the company, and we want to make sure Len knows this. TNA, simply put, would not have survived without Len and Anthem, not just financially, but with the undying faith in Scott and us to revive the company that was on the brink of death. So now they're trying to give Len his flowers. So they're trying to butter him up a little bit, which is smart. So let's see. There was one part of it that I felt was pretty weird. Okay, so we understand and appreciate that professional wrestling at its core is a business and that the company must provide a fiscally responsible, financially viable product. So the rumors of budget cuts, this is what they're addressing. At the same time, pro wrestling is uniquely situated. The business of professional wrestling is so much more than balance sheets, downloads, and ratings. I hate to be the bearer of bad news for them, but that's all that Anthem sees. Is balance sheets, downloads, and ratings, and YouTube clicks and engagement and all that stuff. That's all that they see. And I understand why they're trying to get them to see more, but none of it fucking matters. All they care about is the balance sheets, the downloads, and the ratings, and that's it. And that's not going to change, right? These guys are in business, and I know it's kind of nice to be called a family, and I think that's been cool about the TNA locker room forever, is that they do feel that way about each other. But that, like, Asper and his cronies have never felt that way about TNA. They just want it to be cheap programming for the networks, and that's all it's ever been. And Scott D'Amore and Ed Nordholm got a little out of hand with their spending and continued to ask for more money despite not putting money back into the pot, unfortunately. So they end it, they say a bunch of more of the same stuff, and then they end it with, we remain steadfast and hopeful that this letter can be a first step to opening and keeping open, productive lines of communication to ensure that the TNA family continues to be a wonderful, unique place to work for years to come. We ask you to implore you both to come together and create a resolution that will reunite this family once again. We look forward to hearing from you and continuing this dialogue. Signed, your TNA family. So, look, I hope for their sake that it works, but I don't think that that's going to work, unfortunately, because they're talking to corporate stooges and corporate robots. They just don't see professional wrestling the way that the talent sees it. That's not how this works. Right. So, Dobby the Brain Heenan, in the chat said, busted open. Dreamer said that he's not the head of creative. Dave, you probably could have asked Dreamer. Like I can DM Dreamer right now and ask him, and he would probably tell me. And not as like a source, like he just has his DMs are open. Like you probably could have asked that question yourself, Dave. But Dave does have some more information, but I think we got to take this with a grain of salt because, his TNA information hasn't been very good lately, to be honest with you. But we'll still read it here regardless. So, just a couple notes. D'Amore's offer to buy TNA came after the tapings in Kissimmee, Florida. There are those who have said that the 2021 Brawn for Glory story in last week's issue wasn't accurate, although it did come from an employee who was in a position to know. I wonder if that same employee told you that Dreamer is the head of creative. Anthem's side is that there were business reasons he was being let go, which largely had to do with spending. There were a number of confidential things regarding money, and the idea of a unified branding of Anthem feeling that means more in the long run than just TNA separately. So here was the interesting part. So Nick Hausman actually originally reported this like a day or two ago, so give him some credit, but Dave has some more details. So Ed Nordholm, who formerly was the president of Impact Wrestling when D'Amore was the EVP, and remained working with the company in his role with Anthem and Sports and Entertainment, is no longer working with TNA as of a few weeks ago. D'Amore and Nordholm both being removed from power in TNA happened essentially at the same time and were directly related. Nordholm pushed Anthem to make strong offers for both Punk and Ospreay in particular, although it was obviously going to be a long shot for both, but he was the advocate and did get the company to agree to make offers. Punk obviously wasn't going to go to TNA unless there was no WWE interest at all. And I don't know if he would have even under the circumstances and the offer. Ospreay had no issues with TNA, but AEW obviously made the better offer. So others noted that the stories about Impact's Nashville studio. So this is very interesting. Others noted that the stories about Impact's Nashville studios upgrades not happening yet coincide with getting Nordholm out of that position and D'Amore being gone. Both the company head and Anthem's official overseeing the company had agreed to more spending on the product, and the company itself didn't see it the same way. Basically, it was said that the two people who had seen the recent growth and were looking to push for more growth were both removed at the same time. So the most interesting part of that section of the Observer was that the Nashville studio upgrades apparently, according to who talked to Dave, has just not happened yet. That's very interesting. And then Nordholm and D'Amore both get removed. There's going to be a lot more to this story going forward. This is going to be interesting to cover because I wonder how much that had to do with it, because it's all at the same time. I wonder how the hell that was working out. So, I don't know, but yeah, Nordholm is out too. So Nordholm was still kind of like a guy for the company, but he is completely out, and it's now Dr. Ariel and Anthony Ciccone going forward, and they have merged under the Anthem Entertainment Group umbrella. Okay, and now lastly, on the D'Amore thing. Okay, we were told that the meeting where talent was told about D'Amore was gone, that many were very upset, about several were really upset, and that Frankie Kazarian was the voice of reason. Grace and Moose in particular very vocal about it. Well, obviously Moose is a D'Amore trainee and he's a D'Amore loyalist. But Kazarian was up too. He was just trying to keep his cool head. But it was a bad scene when Asper, who made the call on D'Amore Nordholm, said that it was a decision where D'Amore, who stepped down, and all the talent, or at least the vast majority, was already aware that wasn't true. This led to the talent being sent to. This led to a letter from talent being sent to Asper. Yeah. So they lied about it. They got caught in a lie because, obviously, D'Amore and Ed Nordholm were going to tell the talent that are close to, like, hey, look, this is bullshit. Like, we got fired. Well, actually, Nordholm is still in the company. So that's Nordholm is just going to not have anything to do with TNA anymore. They're like, look, guys, you guys want too much. D'Amore really worked hard to try to grow this company, and it was nothing that Anthem ever wanted. It just wasn't. They never wanted to have this big company. They're buying up these cheap networks. Like Fight Network was started, years and years ago, and they were hemorrhaging money, and so Anthem bought it and then just cleaned out the budget, and now it's just this cheap network. They really don't have a ton of original programming other than like the Network Diary stuff that Barbossa's doing, and then of course Impact. But at one time, Fight Network had like UFC and all kinds of stuff and all kinds of crazy stuff from all over the world. But when Anthem took over, they slashed the budget, and then they bought TNA and they completely got rid of their audio division. They actually had their own like station on Sirius XM. They quit that. They got rid of live audio wrestling whenever they brought in TNA. And then they just completely slashed the budget. Next thing you know, all these guys are like, getting out of their contracts to go back to WWE, just one by one. And then it became a televised indie essentially. And they were bringing in all these guys from Lucha Underground because Lucha Underground had their contracts. And they were basically indentured servants. So like Brian Cage and Johnny Impact and Taya and all those people that came over during that era, they were all Lucha Underground people. And so all they ever wanted TNA to be was cheap programming for the network. And D'Amore got too ambitious. That's where we're at. And now we got Dr. Ariel as the head of creative with Tommy Dreamer basically on the thing. So here, let's go ahead and let's get to the chat. Dre was not happy with me starting with Dollar General. He says that he has no flow and no bars. Let's see. Dobby in the chat says Meltzer was guessing on that one. Dave is usually solid, but his TNA backstage stuff isn't great. You'd think it'd be better considering Lance Storm is on his staff over there at the Wrestling Observer, but it's whoever he's talking to just it doesn't have it. And I'll be honest, the Mike Johnson stuff is coming directly from Dreamer and Lou D'Angeli. Like Mike Johnson might as well be PR for TNA. And for the TNA people. DJ Convoy, welcome back to the Impact. I haven't seen him in the chat in a while for this Impact stuff, but Dreamer's already in creative, and we know he ran that phone call to the talent. Yeah. TNA Mecca put one out for Gangsta Ed. And then Josiah, LOL TNA. The D'Amore story is really astonishing because of all the wrestlers uniting around him. It's unheard of, really. How funny would it be if TNA is the first company to have a unionized wrestling group? Honestly, if the TNA wrestlers tried to unite and start a union, that would be one way to get Anthem to sell the company, because the last fucking thing they want is a union, because Anthem is ran by some right-wing libertarian Canadian guys. So I don't think they would want that. So, and then Josiah says, yeah, Lance never gives stuff away. Clearly he does not. And I listened to his podcast and he played dumb, but we know he knows more than he's saying, but he's just not going to say it because he's old school. So he's not one of those guys. But this story is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to get crazier. More stuff's going to leak. And lastly, on this, it was actually released earlier. I think Fightful or PW Insider might have had this part first, but the new regime is getting some of the talent on other Access television shows. Eric Young will be the host of Vinyl Obsession, where old rock stars look for vinyl treasures and talk about their heyday. Young, Kazarian, and Alexander will be appearing on the show's Top 10 revealed in the very best of the 80s. Those are all shows that not a single goddamn Impact fan's going to watch. So what are we doing? So like literally nobody's gonna want to watch that. Access TV is they're trying to get that 75 demo. They're trying to get that Trump Biden demo. That's what they're looking for, I think, with some of the shows that they're having. And then they're still running like 50-year-old reruns of they're running 50-year-old reruns of the Partridge Family. You know what? Here, let's go to Access TV. So I think Joe Lanza and Rich Crash brought this up yesterday. Let's just go to the Access TV website. A fun little experiment. Okay. Let's see if we can find TNA. Okay. So here we go. Here, who is this at the top? I don't even know who that band is. And I'm usually pretty good about this. Here's Shooter Jennings. Let's see. Celebrity couples. Music power couples. Adam Rock Horowitz and Kathleen. Does anybody know who that is? Okay, we got the big interview. Okay, I know these folks. Yeah, Ice Cube's my guy. Okay. REO Speedwagon. Okay, that was REO Speedwagon at the top. Okay, let's keep going down. Have you guys found TNA yet? Have we talked about TNA on this website yet? Okay. Remembering Toby Keith. Free concerts. Oh, actually, dude, I did not know that I could watch these concerts on here for free. You got Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, Stevie Nicks. I don't really like Shania Twain. Sorry. Free music documentaries. That's cool. Let's see. Sammy Hagar. Let's keep going. Has anybody seen anything from that says TNA on it on the Access TV website? Their #1 rated show. Let's see. Access TV's most watched. Guys, this is not your most watched show. TNA is the most watched show. Let's keep going. Here we got Geddy Lee from Rush, Chicken and Chili with Chad Smith. Okay. Let's see. Anything? Nope. Cash Cab, Vinyl Obsession. It's got ZZ Top on the front. And then you go all the way to, yeah. Okay. How's that synergy working out, guys? How is the synergy? Where is it? This whole move was to get synergy with all the entertainment brands, but you go to the Access TV website and there's not a single mention on the front page of TNA Wrestling. They said that they're advertising their most watched original shows on their website, and TNA ain't one of them. Despite the fact that TNA Impact is the only one that ever makes it into the top 150. What are we doing here, Anthem? Like, you guys are not a serious company. They just aren't. This is not ran by serious people. It's wild to me. So this whole thing is bullshit. Complete, utter, and total bullshit. All right. I think we got off on the wrong foot today. First, I pissed off Dre by playing some Dollar General. Let's see. Let's go back to the chat. Then I'm going to get into the recap. So Lucha Doncic says, "Is it more to get Impact fans to watch that shit, or to get non-Impact fans watching Impact?" I don't think the REO Speedwagon, like 75-year-old person that the demo that they're catering to is probably a big wrestling fan. Could be wrong. Let's see. 80 Rock from the Beastie Boys. Let's see. Dobby. Still crazy how we had 6 years of no drama. They changed back to TNA within weeks. It's the letters. It has to be the letters. Because it's TNA. Like, it's a TNA curse. It's so weird. Yeah. The last time, and I talked about it last week on Brace for Impact, the last time we had really any drama was the Tessa followed by the Elgin and Joey Ryan stuff. That was really the last time. I don't consider the Lady Frost thing dramatic at all, because that was just a talent wanting to get out of their contract, and that happens. She just thought she can get more money elsewhere. But let's see. So it's TNA. It always makes people angry at the end. And then Lucha Doncic. I don't 100% think it's fair to slam them for what they said they're going to do last week, but you're not wrong. Lucha, this has been going on forever. They could have done this stuff even when TNA was operating separately. I don't think it's that much to ask the Access TV website to say that TNA is on their network. I don't think that's weird. And how long does it take to, hey, you know what? Maybe we should look at this website and see if it's promoting TNA. I don't really think that's much of an ask, right? And maybe they just don't. Maybe Anthony Ciccone doesn't know that they have a website for Access TV. Maybe he just doesn't know. But that's why we got to hold people accountable. We got to talk about this stuff. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they don't know that that's a good thing to list TNA Impact as the #1 rated show on your network. Let's see. I'm almost willing to bet more people watch TNA on YouTube than Access. Probably the matches, but not YouTube Ultimate Insiders. I guarantee that I'd put the over under like 5,000, the number of the people that subscribe to that. That would be my over under, and I'd happily be wrong about that, but I just don't think that many people have it. Hell, I don't even have it anymore. So, and I have a TNA podcast. So, yeah. So this whole, I don't know, we're going to continue to cover this thing, right here on Brace for Impact, but we're going to go ahead and get into the show. Last night's show was a fine show. It was okay. I actually enjoyed it a little bit better than I liked last week's show. Even though, again, there's no real interesting story to sink your teeth into. It's not really like a must-watch show right now. I think with all the drama surrounding it, the actual TV product itself isn't overcoming the drama that's within the company, which is pretty sad. But that was kind of par for the course back in the day of TNA, where you were more interested in what was going on behind the scenes with Dixie Carter and Vince Russo and the different issues that they were having. That the actual product itself wasn't as interesting. And that sucks. But last night's show, actually, I thought it was like a pretty decent show. I mean, it wasn't really like anything that anybody needs to go out of the way to watch, but I thought it was okay. I thought it was a decent show. So let's go here to the first match. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay, so the first match was a good match, but it was probably the saddest match of the show because the Kissimmee crowd was so silent, and it was so noticeable when Jake Something came out. I don't know if they just didn't know who that was or they just didn't care, but he comes out and then he does the "What's my name?" and then everybody's supposed to chant something, and like 7 people joined him. It was like, gosh, I typically am against, piping in crowd noise, but man, should they have at least done something, because the lights are off. You can barely see, you can't really make out their faces in the crowd because they I don't know if they blur them or the cameras are just so bad they won't actually pick up their faces unless you zoom in on them. But it's so dark in the arena, like you really can't see what people are saying. So you could have easily just, did like a fake something in the crowd to make people think that people care about Jake Something. And I was pretty mad that Jake lost this match, but to be honest with you, I guess I know why. Like, the crowd doesn't care about him, and as long as they keep beating him the way they did, they're never going to care. Like, every time he gets a little bit of momentum, they just beat him. So why would they care? But I thought it was a good match. Like, both these guys are awesome. They're 2 of my favorites. So the 2 traded near falls at the closing stages, exciting for a TNA chant. Exciting, a TNA chant from an otherwise dead crowd. Yeah. Kazarian got the pin after pulling Something from a seated position off the top rope, smashing his head on the top turnbuckle. He then stacked Something up for a pin and grabbed the bottom rope for leverage for a second straight win. And then, so Something's momentum that he had, where he was looking like a monster at the beginning of the year, they've already cut his legs off because now he's back to geek mode. Let's see. And Josiah did not do this report. Let me give a shout out to whoever did. It's Josh Nason. Okay, so Nason. I was wondering why there's no detail. It's because Nason. Nason's not going to go fucking full blow by blow on all these matches. That's just not happening. TNA Knockouts champion Jordan Grace defeated Savannah Evans. This was, kind of a glorified squash. Like, I didn't think the match was bad. I didn't think it was particularly very good. I think it was just an opportunity to make Grace look strong. And the only important part was the angle at the end. So this was over quickly as after some back and forth, Grace hit a muscle buster out of the corner to pick up the win. Afterward, Shaw nailed Grace and Evans with her Ultimate X. Is that like thing like styrofoam? I don't know. The Ultimate X that she wanted hard to kill. It felt like Evans' swan song with TNA while I'm wondering how Shaw feels about the promotion given what happened to D'Amore. So this was clearly recorded before D'Amore was fired, but I bet Giselle had an inkling, considering we all like D'Amore knew like a month before he got fired that he was actually leaving the company. So yeah, it was okay. It was just an angle to heat up Grace versus Shaw at No Surrender. So Gia Miller was backstage and she was interrupted by Ash by Elegance's concierge, who is a George Iceman. I've been waiting for George Iceman to get a regular gig on TV. I think he's funny. I might be the only one that actually thinks George Iceman is interesting and funny, but I did like that. Hey Dre in the chat, I'm gonna get to that, buddy. Don't you worry. I'm gonna talk about that. So she made an announcement that next week would be her TNA in-ring debut. And yeah, they're just taking their time. So yeah, I think she squashes some chick next week. So and Josh Nason likes the concierge. Josh, buddy, I'll DM you. His name is George Iceman. Maybe TNA didn't do a good job of that. So okay. So Alan Angels does a backstage sound check interview segment with Simon Gotch. Gotch put over how tough Alexander was in coming back from a broken neck 5 years ago, but the details in his fairy tale comeback to being signed by TNA and winning the title was missing details, that it was Gotch who pushed him to the limits in Alexander's comeback match. He is upset that Alexander got the win and future opportunities that night while he got overlooked. Alexander then busted open. Okay. So they're trying to get people interested in Simon Gotch, and it's not working. I know some people like the backstory of Gotch being like the one who was wrestling Josh Alexander in Destiny Wrestling 5 years ago, and then Scott D'Amore, was sitting ringside on commentary, and then he walked in and he gave Alexander a contract, and that's the story. And then nobody mentioned Simon Gotch. Here's why nobody mentioned Simon Gotch in that, or Simon. He was called Simon Graham at the time. It's because he sucks, guys. People are trying to talk me into Simon Gotch, and it's not going to work. He'll probably have a good match with Josh Alexander because guess what? Josh Alexander rules. There's not a single person on that roster that Josh can't have over 3 stars with. There just isn't. He's very good. He's probably going to make Gotch look good, and then people are going to start talking like, well, maybe Gotch should stick around. No. The reason why he wasn't ever mentioned is because nobody fucking cares about him. And then I had this guy, Steve, from France. This French guy, Steve. He said, hey, well, are you aware that he was in Noah? And did you watch his Noah stuff? Yes, I did. Simon Gotch is this little fuck, 5'7", probably 180 pounds, trying to work like he's Brock Lesnar. He fancies himself as like a catch wrestler. And that's fine. That's cute. But he never got over in Noah either. And then what did he do in MLW? He was the third wheel in Contra, right? Third or fourth. I can't remember exactly, but Fatu was the top guy. And then they had Joseph Kabibo, or whatever his name is, the Sheik, as the mouthpiece. And then they had Simon Grimm. And he didn't get over that way either. Fatu got over because guess what? Fatu is fucking interesting. Fatu can go. Fatu is awesome, right? He's also a free agent right now. I wonder if he comes here. I don't have any hope there, given that we're doing talent or budget cuts. So instead of trying to bring over the guy that was actually good and interesting, that actually got Contra over, you're bringing one of the lackeys from Contra, right? And then you're putting him against your top star. Now, if they brought in Simon Grimm, Simon Gotch, and he was working some undercard matches and they were just, testing him out, that's one thing. But they immediately brought him in when Josh was at his hottest peak, having the greatest match of his career that hundreds of thousands of people got exposure to because they released it online for free, but then it was also on Access TV. And it's going to be one of those matches that gets replayed on all their platforms for years to come. They immediately went from the Ospreay match to Gotch. And you guys don't see a problem with that. I see that's a big problem for me. That makes no sense. And now they're trying to make me think that Gotch is on the level of Alexander when he hasn't done a goddamn thing since that match with Alexander, besides suck in MLW and besides suck in Noah, right? How did that Noah run work out for him? Yeah, they didn't bring him back, did they? Okay? They just didn't bring him back. Now, look, you want to bring in Simon Gotch because he's your crony and he's your friend? Okay, he can wrestle goddamn Crazy Steve, right, on Before the Impact or Explosion. All right, but don't put him up against Josh. That's disrespectful to Josh. And maybe, you know what, and then AEW was always All Friends Wrestling. What do you think TNA is doing right now? Why do you think Gotch is there? It's not because he can draw money. It's not because anybody's interesting in him. It's because he's got friends. He's got friends in the company. That's it. And you know what? I bet Alexander likes the guy and wants to give him a shot. And I think that's admirable. But that doesn't mean that I have to fucking care about it, right? It doesn't mean I have to care. You got to call it like it is. So the interview, like, it wasn't like a bad interview. It didn't work for me. And I don't think that this Alan Angels thing is going to get over. I'm just not seeing it. But they go from that to what TNA is actually really good at. What they're really good at is hungry young talent. This is what they're supposed to be good at. Not these washouts, these 40-year-old washouts from WWE. Couldn't make it there, couldn't make it anywhere, and they're not out there hustling. They're just resting on their laurels like Simon fucking Gotch and Big Con. What their calling card was for over a decade was young, hungry talent showing out in the ring. And that's what we got with ABC versus the Grizzly Young Veterans in match 2 of the best of 3 series. So Aiden Bay got the victory here, so we're heading into No Surrender for the finale. So the Grizzly Young Vets worked on the left arm of Austin that they injured last week. For a long, long time, Bay eventually got the hot tag. After a few minutes, he got in trouble as well. Barely kicking out a Doomsday device. Well, that was pretty awesome, actually. I love that part. They got the big TNA chant. After his own hot tag, Bay grabbed Gibson's leg as the veterans lined up for Grit Your Teeth, giving Austin an opening Incenare, whatever the hell that is, dragged to Incenare. I don't know what Josh just said there, and get an impressive bridging pin for the win. So we're going to the finale and No Surrender, and I think the guys are going to tear the house down. These guys are awesome. I love these guys. Best match of the night by far. Best match. And next we go to Dango and Prudius. He had a couple good one-liners, but it's like, okay, look, I get that you were a fan of WCW. I'm just not interested anymore. Do something. Do something interesting for the love of God, right? Like these backstage, these little vignettes that he was doing, they were working for a while. And then when you put him in the ring, like nobody cared, right? It's because once the bell rings, he's not that good. And that's the problem with bringing in these washouts. They have not done anything to improve themselves. Yeah, he's doing interesting stuff backstage, but you put him in front of the audience and he still sucks. So Dango and Prudius, Dango said they were holding an open casting call for tag team challengers with under a year experience. Dango name dropped Scott Norton as the suggested main event of Norton versus Prudius. He also wondered where the Panda Energy car was. Okay. Now we get to something actually really interesting. I kind of, I wasn't really into it at first, but I kind of like where they're going with this Mustafa Ali deal. Ali was back with another politician promo. I made the joke on Twitter that he was running for TNA president. Kudos to me. That was pretty funny. I don't care if you didn't like it. Putting over the X division, how he wants to be the leader of it. That led to the Good Hands asking for promo time, saying how much they love Ali. X division champion Sabin, who will face Ali at No Surrender, happened to be there and took issue with the Hands and some of their entourage, knocking one of them out and shoving Hotch. Look, there's nothing interesting about Hotch and Skyler, but I think this Mustafa Ali deal is working. It's working for me. And I think that if you were to ask me, I'd put that in the main event over Shelley versus Moose, because the Shelley versus Moose thing is just not working. And then we go to, then the show takes a jump off a cliff here. Digital Media Champion Steve versus, he defeated Rhino to retain. Not much happened in this match. Totally skippable. Rhino wanted things to be hardcore and brought out a table, which Steve didn't care for, putting it back after regaining the advantage. Rhino nearly had this one after hitting a TKO, but the champion rallied, distracting the referee by throwing a fork and nailing the challenger with the title belt for the pin. End of a meh, according to Josh Nason match. I completely agree with him on that one. Keep the digital, like if these are the types of matches we're going to get for the digital media title, just keep it on Explosion. That way I don't have to watch it. And then Hendry versus Diener never got started. So I thought the AJ Francis and Joe Hendry stuff was pretty funny. I like that. I really did like it. AJ Francis aired a video on the big screen, so I played some of the audio to begin the show. And then he came out and said, from here on out, the show is called TNA AJ Francis. Hendry said that now he understood how he felt and did it when he did insult videos, and that he was unprepared, except he wasn't. Then he aired his own video to AJ Styles TNA music called Banned from Diving. And I thought that was pretty funny too. I thought that was pretty cute. Francis then got in the ring and laid out Hendry, much to Diener's delight. Eventually, Rich Swann came out to even the odds, and Francis walked away. Okay, so I think we're finally going to get a Rich Swann heel turn here. I think we're finally going to get it. They're actually going to do something interesting with Swann, because that's the one thing I've never seen him do is be a heel. It looks like it, and they might not, but I kind of I'm here for a Rich Swann heel turn. Then they aired Nick Nemeth's recent appearance for the World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico, where he was attacked by Macklin after the match. I thought that was a nice touch. So what happened was that Nemeth was supposed to be at that Sunday Orlando or Kissimmee, Florida taping, but he had already gotten booked for Puerto Rico. And so instead of wasting the moment, they actually sent Macklin to Puerto Rico to do the attack. Actually, Macklin worked the undercard on that show. So they probably worked out with WW or WWC to get Macklin on the card. But I thought that was pretty cool. And they're keeping the story going. I like the fact that Macklin's willing to go anywhere to hurt Nemeth. And maybe they should have, instead of having Macklin in New Orleans for No Surrender, they should send him to Japan. I think that would be cool if they can work that out with New Japan to keep that feud going. Macklin and the Rascals were then talked to by Gia Miller. They talked to Gia Miller, but Trent Seven and Mike Bailey weren't having it. Seven challenged Macklin for a match next week. And then we go to Danny Luna defeating Killer Kelly. Danny Luna's taken some L's the last couple weeks, so it's her turn to get a victory because everybody gets to win. But crowd was pretty silent, but I thought it was a good short match. I thought this match was fine. But I get the feeling now we're gonna get a 3-way eventually for the no surrender for the title. So Luna picked up the win after a roll up after Kelly got tangled up with Slamovich and Threat on the ropes. Afterward, Kelly and Slamovich laid out Luna and Threat, which later knockouts tag team champions Decay coming out to make the save. So we got 3 tag teams in the promotion. So they all 3 must wrestle each other at some point. So, but that match, the 3-way hasn't been announced, but I'm like, Danny Luna beat Killer Kelly. So what are we doing there with them? So I don't know. I don't know where that's going. And then we go to the main event. Moose defeated Kushida in a non-title match. This was very much a Moose match. He beat down the Babyface for a long time. Babyface made a comeback. Moose hits a spear to pick up the win. And I liked it. I don't think it was the match of the night, not even by a long shot, but I did like the match. I did think it was a pretty good match. These Moose, whenever he's beating down these little guys and then they make the big comeback, I think Moose plays a very good, big man wrestler. I like that. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good show. Nothing crazy, nothing worth really going out of your way to see. The Grizzly Young Vets match and versus ABC was match of the night. So I think that was cool. So let me go to the chat. See, Dre says GYV lack a little flash, but I really like their match layout. Yeah, they're Grizzly guys. The tag match ruled. Lucha saying they got to add a stip to match 3. I'd be okay with that. They got to do something for No Surrender to make it a little bit more interesting. See, Lucha Doncic says Mike G be funny sometimes. Every once in a while I get one. Dre says, I like the consistent character trait of the Machine Guns being the coolest, nicest guys until someone likes someone else, and then there are salty bastards. Yeah. Get Rhino out of here. Well, Scott's gone. I could see Rhino. I don't even know if Rhino's under contract, so I could see him leaving shortly after that. And Dobby says, I'm curious if they have Macklin in Japan next weekend. I'm curious about that too. I think that would be cool. He doesn't have a match in No Surrender with Nemeth not there. So yeah, no, I agree. I think that would be awesome. And then Dre, he's thirsty for Danny Luna. So there you go. And then Lucha says it's the battle of the jiggle. So, and then Dobby says, I legit don't understand the hate Moose gets in the internet wrestling community. As an actual talent, he's legit and has been for years. I agree. I never understood why people didn't like his matches. I happen to like all his matches. I think he's really good. But he's just never going to win over those people. I think he's a WWE style wrestler. I think that was always his goal, but WWE is not going to bring him in because of the arrest for domestic violence. They're just not. Now, if he was like a huge draw, they would forgive it. But the fact is, he's just not. And they have they have 10 guys like Moose already on probably in developmental right now, right? Like former football players who are jacked, and they're probably like, we can just make our own Moose. So we don't need to bring in a 40-year-old guy who's really good but has this history. So that they're just not going to do it. So. But I think if he didn't have the history, or if they would have brought him in right off his Ring of Honor run, because it wasn't really publicized until he got to TNA. At least I don't remember anybody talking about it while he was in Ring of Honor. It wasn't until he got to TNA and then people started to bring it up. And then it became like a problem. So I think that if he would have went straight from Ring of Honor to WWE, they would have kept him and he would have had a really good career there. But instead, he's friends with Scott D'Amore. D'Amore probably got him a good deal with TNA, and he's been there ever since. So, and he's had a really good career in TNA. So yeah, I am a Moose fan. I like Moose. I like him a lot. And then of course I interviewed him, even though he lied to me during the interview. I still like him. So, but yeah, hey guys, we got 47 minutes out of this deal. I really do appreciate everybody in the chat for joining me. That makes the show go by a lot faster. So, thank you guys for being here. Next week. Oh, I take it. So tonight I'll be back with a Mike and JD show, sans JD. There will be no JD. I'm going to be bringing in my cousin, Fed Pill Joe. He'll be on the show. And then afterwards, he and I are going to do a deep dive into Kurt Angle versus Sting. So that's the next edition of Sting's Greatest Rivals. It'll be Kurt Angle versus Sting. And then next week when JD's back, JD and I are going to do Sting versus the NWO. And that'll be our finale. And that's all going to be a part of Sting Week coming up in March. The Road to Revolution, Sting's final match. JD and I are going to be putting out it's already going to be on Patreon, but we'll start putting more of that stuff out as audio for other people to hear. So as part of Sting Week coming up in March. So that's really, really cool. We're really excited about that. Also, guys, if you're watching or if you're listening to this, do me a favor. Go to our YouTube channel and go to JD's movie. So we released a movie on our YouTube channel. It was on Patreon first. It's called it's a documentary from JD. It's called Independence, wrestling with a community. And JD is really proud of this thing, and we're trying to get it to hit the algorithm. So if everybody could just do me a favor and go to the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel and check out Independence, Wrestling with a Community. I'm going to bring it up right now. And then if you could just hit the thumbs up on there and then drop a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. That would help us out a lot, because I use the hashtags to get the movie to hit the algorithm, the documentary hashtags, full movie, and it's doing pretty well compared to some of our other lower end stuff that we do. But because people don't come to our channel to watch movies and documentaries, it hasn't hit the algorithm yet. So if you guys could just do me a favor, hit the thumbs up and throw down a comment, and just tell JD his movie rules, I would greatly appreciate that. Would really help us out. Because if it works, then we're going to try to put other movies, the other documentaries that JD has released, that he has complete total control over. We're going to put them on the YouTube as well. So I would really appreciate that. So thank you very much. But that's going to do it for me this week. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks everybody listening on Patreon and watching on Patreon. I greatly appreciate you. And until next week, mahalo.